Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the 130th episode of our first run through the House of Light expansion to Book of Hours. I'm System Chalk. Let's pick up where we left off. So we have in the queue, checks in the mail. So we've got surgeries and exsanguinations on its way. We will be using the Killicene. Oh dear, what did I choose to? I remember Solutions and Separations was going to level up Lockworks and Clockworks. I think it was Sand Stories I was going to bring up. This is the drawback about not doing them all in one go. I didn't leave notes too because I thought I was going to do the episode a little quicker. Anyways, I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So I don't have an immediate use for this, but we will see. Old wound, move gingerly while the pain lasts. Now, it did actually occur to me that I do need a memory for the Wormwood Dream. But I can't do it here. I think I should have a moon workbench somewhere. Yeah, that'll do. So we really just look for a moon tool. In this case, the lunar globe. Craft a wormwood dream. Recall a forgotten crime of moon and winter. So I realized I said originally, well, you know, I can just read Inescapable Confinement, but I did actually have a spare memory kicking around, so why not, right? All right, I think it's fair to say we may be a little delayed if I open up the delivery, but let's go for it. Unwrap, unbox, unleash. No, 30 seconds is fine. Okay. So I definitely want to talk with Mr. Kill about the Wormwood Dream next. And then, you know, Solomon's preparation, and we'll see where we're at. I think at that point I don't need to use this tool anymore. My assistant and I will be prudent. Exalt with a memory. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. And here we go. So this was the Strathcoyne whiskey. Collector has collected a distillery, it seems. So we will replenish what was in the chamber here. We'll put this downstairs with the other booze. And as far as storage is concerned, this actually doesn't seem like a bad place to put the surplus. The beef, we had a little bit of a system in place here, but I think I've started to use up these steps. Oh, this works. All right. Let's just hope whatever it is down here doesn't see that as an offering. Lots of reading. The Radical Measure, Manifesto for Experimental and Dangerous Sounding Invocatory Poetry, written sometime after in the 19th century by Dr. Aaron Peel, a notoriously inconsistent and incoherent text, apparently produced in a tearing hurry. The hours have little time for poetry, Dr. Peel avers, but they have a tremendous amount of time for poets. As the rose opens, Dr. Peel explains, an enduring memory opens to the horizon. This is a way of saying something that cannot otherwise be said and is best only written with one's eyes firmly closed. That would be for this, I think. Opening the Sky, an unusual recording of Varro's Opening the Sky, composed for the coronation of the new king, Henry IX. The record bears the suppression stamp Expunge. The first movement is soft, autumnal. The second, unsettling, febrile. The third is bright, soaring, rapturous. The fourth movement is glassy, slithering, a tintinnabulous icicle rattle. The fifth returns to the theme of the third, bright and rapturous once again, but this is a choral movement. It becomes apparent, though, that these are much, much too pure and high to be human voices. They recall birdsong, they recall the sweep of the windswept sky, blue turning black at the edge of the higher heaven, and they wrench the heart in a direction the Bureau does not permit. I think this was actually for the surgeries and exsanguinations. I can always shuffle them around after the fact. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay, so we'll restore the shaft with that. It is spring, and the landlady has served me a slice of her stargazy pie with the pilchard heads poking cheekily through the hot crust. Here we have On the Matter and Deeds of Serpents. This was probably the Prophecies of the Naga, rendered into English and illustrated by William Midnight in Paris in the 1880s, but it shows a number of divergences from that text. It's certainly quite recent by the standards of VAC texts. The serpent folk, called the Great Hooded Princes, came to know the order called the House of Leith and warred across the miles with them. They made an alliance with the mother of ants whose children they had been. The text describes how the Great Hooded Princes escaped, or will escape, from the fifth history where they had died, or were doomed to die. They engaged in a secret conquest of the land of the Great River, called India in some histories, and have ensured that all other conquests of that land are false conquests. Singlefoot Songs. Father Stanislav John Schaller, priest and diplomat, writes of his time on the slopes of Huashan, near the Grove of Green Immortals, but never too near. Schaller's relations with the grove are cautious. It's a library of the tree, but under the hand of the hour named Applebright. In time, however, Schaller comes to be more sympathetic to the Applebright, which he suggests causes harm only when so invited. The singlefoots of the title are one-horned, one-footed hill things with sweet but powerful voices, powerful enough to open the mountain. The singlefoot sometimes trample pilgrims, sometimes heal them, sometimes coerce them to enter the mountain and become singlefoots. Schaller explains that when he found this last becoming too tempting, he decided to return to his homeland. The Deaths of the Moon, a historical tract on various forms of survival after death. When the heart no longer beats, the grail may keep the spirit in the body, and an appetite is indicated to sustain. Alukites are the best known, but not the only of this nature. This is the waning moon mode. The full moon mode is the intensification of one element of the soul to the point where ordinary sustention is unstable. Our protector, the generous of hosts, began of this nature, and its generosity remains ungentle. It is possible for the body's health or the heart's core to outpace the other elements, so that a static mode becomes impossible and growth proceeds in dramatic stages until balance remanifests. The Geminiad Volume 1, a fragile manuscript illuminated with twin shapes of sad and luminous beauty and with all the phases of the moon. It might be as old as the 7th century, but the language Fusine is much older. The cover is tooled goatskin decorated with garnet. These pages outline the nature and the doctrines of an hour that weaves together the willing, an hour that is sought beneath the moon and the water at the water's edge, the sister and witch. The language is willful, naughty, poetic. It'll take some untangling. The first volume of the Geminiad reminds us that the sister and witch has been known to manifest as the witch and sister, and that this face is always hungry while the other face may heal. It implies connections between the sister and witch and the hours of the upper Mansus, especially the lunar hour called the Menascate, but it is ambiguous on whether the sister and witch is a Mansus hour proper. And it speaks at length about the sadness of the two who are one, the sadness that remains from their time as flesh. And the intimations of skin, fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Fredrik Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the names of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory, a lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly, a lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. Lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, and the growth name is already partially engulfed, but it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. So, now my preference here, because of Glazerian lightsmithing, would be to sort of knock off the Lockworks and Clockworks earlier. The only catch here is that the Solace could be replaced by Mr. Kill. You know what? I'm still going to do it. So I'm going to take solutions and separations and use them to level up Lockworks and Clockworks first. And that's just because I know for Glazerian lightsmithing I'm going to want to generate more sky memories. So for that, we'll use the shaft. So satisfying to have come so far. Improve the skill to level 5. For a similar reason, we will use surgeries and exsanguinations next. The only question I have is, do I want... We are early enough in the day that it might make sense for me just to wait for this to turn out. I maybe should have thought of that before I committed, but we'll see. I am, however, inclined to... Let's go to the beehive. Honey or beeswax. If I'm careful, cuckoo honey, if the Blomberende have been by to visit their infant nobility. I don't exactly need more from the garden, but I'm trying to get a little bit better at taking advantage of the opportunities in spring. Don't think we have any options here. Oh no, Lenten Rose. Huh. Fair enough. I feel like I have enough cat's claw already. Yeah. I don't know, let's go for another moth orchid. Alright. So just remembering that I only need 14. I'll give him one of Solomon's preparations. Solomon Husher would take this every night without fail before sleep to close his ears to the sound of the waves. But on the 9th of January 1838, a heavy snow fell on Hush House. When the other residents dug themselves out, Husher was nowhere to be found. He had left a resignation letter and an undrunked measure of his preparation. That'll free him up for conversation, although we're early enough in the day that I may want to consider hiring him again to open up the crystallized chamber. I'm not opposed to that idea. And obviously here I'm waiting on the extra level before committing to reading the other texts. Okay, surgeries and exsanguinations is the one potentially under threat by new memories. So this is pretty straightforward here. I'm still going to use the shaft just because the core can be repurposed for gardening. I probably should have been exploring Crowcross Sands and the other locations. Yeah, if this requires a 13, I think we're in a position to hire Mr. Kill again. All right, the charred chamber. The iron door here stands ajar, but it still glows faintly red, even after all these years. This is not a natural heat, and there is no entirely natural way to quell it. This complicates it if I'm going to be using this whist again. We'll still go for it, but assistance from Mr. Kill, let's to it. Let's hope it's equally possible to forget this again. So I do have some ideas about how I can make this work without necessarily having to bring back the whist. So I'm going to talk to him about the inescapable confinement first. Next up, we are going to level up Sand Stories. And for that, we can use a Fete. There's always more to learn. I think I'm also at a point here where I can adjust the ordering of a couple of these. Actually, particularly pyroglyphics, which is already committed. And then Lockworks and Clockworks will also be there, so I might as well move that up. This is going to be a little bit of a disaster to get back in order. And then okay, this will do. We'll have to move around the Glacierian lightsmithing as well, but I'm not in a rush for that. Better now. Each flame his fuel. A work by Omar the Blaze, an initiate or craftsmaster at the Labyrinth of Lions. Omar describes his work in the construction of mirrors for the enclosure of a sacred flame and his slow realization of a flaw in the glass. Omar explains how his lightsmithing techniques can be used in the presence of sufficient lantern to enrich xanthotic essence into the great ink of the first history, but he pleads caution in its use, lest the chandler be realized. So that gives us a revelation. I'm pretty happy we we reshelved the revelations. Okay, that's 2 Glacierian lightsmithing to work with. Now to me, the next priority is getting the Ascendant Harmony back. So unfortunately, I may have some trouble Yeah, this is a shame. Okay, well, I'm still going to try and get the Ascendant Harmony, but I think all of my elements of the soul are sort of askew, because I need lots of Faust and Whist, and those are all the things that I don't have right now. But let's work on getting that Ascendant Harmony back. So I don't recall if Sights and Sensations lets me get away with that. And I would need to use the... Okay, so answer is no. So what does give me the Ascendant Harmony? Oh dear. Oh, Bells and Braziers, which I locked away. Okay, well, you know what? That's fine. Let's focus instead on bringing Glacierian lightsmithing up. So I need 4 of the... Lantern and Sky. Some of these will actually be pretty easy for me to sort out. So let's get our Cheerful Ditty. We will get a Savage Hymn. That actually already covers me for this first round of the Glacierian lightsmithing. Okay. I'm faced with a few options I don't want to take, so I think now's the time for me to start making some sacrifices. But I think I'm genuinely locked out on the pale desk. Okay, so the Ascendant Harmony is on my to-do list. Wait a minute. Right, these were also overflow. Okay. So yeah, the funny thing is that I've got tons of elements of the soul, and I just don't have an immediate use for all of them. So I'm going to make my life a little bit easier by restoring the Faust. I'm not going to do that for Whist quite yet, because the temptation's going to be to throw that into Mr. Kill, and I have other options when it comes to Mr. Kill. Memories don't last long outside books, but it's made a difference for the day. Actually, also... No, that's right. We only use the memory at this point. Okay, so the next obvious step, the Solomon's preparation. I can offer my assistant something to drink. The skill is now level 2. Its power aspects have also increased. I'm sure I'm going to have to shuffle around a few of the memories, but at this point I'm going to calm down a little bit on some of the different actions. One thing I don't feel 100% about is the fact that I'm neglecting Crowcross Sands like this, but at this point I'm just going to leave it aside. Now, big moment up here. We're going to save that for last. Moth Orchid is soft as velvet to the touch, except when it changes. I don't need like a greenhouse for Moth Orchid, but I definitely would like to have... You know what, we can put you in here. I definitely would like to have a little bit more of a stock, because it is something that's helped me in the past. Alright, Cuckoo Honey's welcome. Don't know if we'll be able to fit it, though. The Blumberende were rogues and trickster heroes among the Carapace kinds. Ingenious, brave, prolific, untrustworthy. In Numa, their children might yet bring gifts to ordinary hives. And I think I'm good for grapes. I'm kind of running out of space. Alright, so what do we find up here? Crucible Tower, the interview laboratory. When a prisoner resisted all other interventions, callers would bring them here to test and refine their worth. His successes might be transferred to Zurich, or even turned over to the Legion de Sul to earn their humanity. Or turned over to the Legion de Sul to earn their humanity, or even, at least once, released. I think this was the Carapace kind. But his successes were not numerous. Here at last is where the fire began and where it ended. When the power below the prison was released, it came here to interview callers. Perhaps it intended to put him in his own device, but it seems that there was not nearly enough of him left for that. Please refrain from smoking. So yes, this is the fate of callers. This is the answer to the fire story. Of course, by this point, the game has sort of given you enough questions. If you've reached here without knowing what's down below, you still have more mysteries to ponder. And of course, we've got more than enough stuff down below to keep us interested. But this is sort of the conclusion to the what happened in the fire story. We've got black sapphire wash, the color perhaps of the doors of the House of the Moon. Phosphorescent scrapings rendered inert but still luminous. Heart in a jar, an offering or an exhibit. Regensburg bomb, an invaluable herbal cure introduced to Hush House by the physician Natan after his exile from Regensburg. Libitic tincture, a much more potent preparation, can be extracted from the remains of a labite, but labites generally frown on this technique. Wolf snow ampule, far too cold ever to melt in anything but the hottest noonday sun, It will very gradually consume human flesh. Gideon Soaks, a therapeutic collection of beneficial bottles. And the Convict Book, the terrible heart of the Governor's terrible project. So you can use it to level up Skolakosophy attuned skills. It has Edge, Forge, Knock, and Lantern. And it will accept elements of the soul, pets, fuel, memories, remains, tools. Obviously, that's why I wanted to get there by the end. But we also have something cool down here, which will at least start to work towards. Okay, so first question here is, what do we have with Mr. Kill? So yes, I just need 2 more elements of the soul. So the nice thing here would, of course, be to take a Whist, but I have other options. So the first thing I'll do here is take the Bronze Knife, which will give me another Winter. I can lend my assistant something to help, increasing their abilities. And here I have any number of options. So for instance, I could pour a glass of water and that would give me the Winter as well. As I used to say in my youth, the day is done and so am I, but I've earned my pay. But in this case, it's also just as easy for me to use the U-blank. All right, Perugian Diaries. In 1907, at the age of 18, Christopher Olopoli left Strathcoyne's household to study theology at the University of Perugia in Italy, enrolling under the name Christopher Strathcoyne. For 4 years since his adoption from a Bristol orphanage, Olopoli served as Strathcoyne's pupil and protege, but his relationship with this austere and secretive man was always complicated. His journal confides, "I still think Fraser's intentions are good, certainly he agrees, but I never understood the final goal of his investigations. He was never prepared to enlighten me, and good intentions or not, I can no longer bear this stream of eyes. We've agreed to part almost amicably." Olopoli left Perugia in 1909 without completing his degree. He had long lost interest in his studies, and the latter half of his journal is concerned with his studies of Umbrian folk songs, and notes towards his own compositions, which are of widely varying quality. One of the better ones, In the Marshes of Night, suggests he visited the site of Old Lake Fucinus near Ortuccio. Unhatched Hymns, hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers, and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigal to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The Hymn of the Phases celebrates the Meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The Hymn of the Reflections more puzzlingly celebrates the Meniscate as sister of Janus, mother of Shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. The Intimations of Skin, fiendishly complex, weirdly distorted illustrations of Congress and anatomy by the haunted visionary painter Niels Frederick Malsker. Malsker illuminates the evolutions of the names of the Grail with unfortunate clarity. It seems that a lovely who consumes an ivory becomes an ivory. A lovely who consumes a thirstly becomes a thirstly. A lovely who consumes a name of another hour might take its place. In the penultimate illustration, a lovely grapples with a fungoid knot that can only be a name of the crowned growth. The lovely's mouth and other portals gape wide, and the growth name is already partially engulfed, but it seems that Malsker couldn't bring himself to illustrate the result, and the final illustration is only a scrawled, bloated obscurity. I should maybe see if I can generate this through skills. 1, because that'll free up another desk for me, and number 2, it'll save you all from hearing that particular book many, many times over. Glimmerings. This is one that I will draw your attention to, but we will see the... we'll have the other step that'll appear later. But for those of you unfamiliar with this, it's one that you will probably want to keep in mind. An anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of oniric irresponsibility and confined to the cucurbit. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming and they keep writing them down. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of oniric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel hidden beneath Brankrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their finger bone. What does not bark? Alexander Probst writes warily of Calyptra, a law, principle, or society which prevents the dissemination of dangerous knowledge. Calyptra, like the planet that occludes the star, or the Doylean dog that fails to bark, can be identified only by its absence. Even the name, I think, must be a mask. Calyptra is said to make exceptions specifically for the libraries of the Watchman's Tree. Does it make those exceptions so the Hours can make use of them? De Oris Book 2, in Latin, a 19th century reprint by the indefatigable Nathaniel Darcy Evers of a 4th century Latin translation of a 4th century work. 14th century Latin translation of a 4th century work. This volume deals mostly with the hour called the Lionsmith, the hour called the Tribune of Scars, and with their enmity. I know I read this recently, sorry. The Lionsmith makes monsters to defeat the Tribune, but the Scars of the Tribune are each a weapon. And finally, The Locksmith's Dream, Portions and Proportions, the second volume of Teresa Galmier's examination of the parallels and mystic dreams of artisans. The frontispiece has been slashed with a razor. In this volume, Galmier records fewer dreams and explicates more on her own elaborate theories. We've seen this again and again. What is below can't escape what is above. The finest artisans all dream of the white door in the end. I'm no artisan, only a scholar. I think there is a secret that all these artisans know, but I think that secret is only half the story. All right, so I want to kind of be careful in terms of the order in which I level these things up, but we definitely want to take Glazier Lightsmithing up. Why did I think Lockworks and Clockworks was going to be higher? I'm also going to need to make space for bells and braziers again. I'm going to wind up doing all of this for Glazier and Lightsmithing again too, so let's... Yeah, I'll free up 2 spots in 6. That'll do for now. All right. So, the first ones that I want to use here would be Foresight and Storm. Oh, and Revelation. So this is basically me saying, okay, we know that there's going to be... we know that there's going to be the potential for Mr. Kill giving us more entries. Now, that's not guaranteed, by the way, so, you know, I may just read the extra books. We're going to want to go from 5 to 6, so in this case I need to find 2 more with either Sky or Lantern. And the Bittersweet Certainty is clearly going to be one of those. So I can queue that up right now. We don't have any use for the Shapt otherwise, so we'll put that in here. And we can move on to the Black Book of Brittany. So that gets me the Bittersweet Certainty. But the question is, do I have another Sky that maybe Mr. Kill won't be able to generate for me? Or maybe I don't care at this point because... Yeah, you know what? We'll just read Demo 2 and call it there. So with this, we know that we'll have the Faust after we're done resting. We can use the Tryst and the Fete to try and find goodies. Should even be able to say hi to the Gull Colony. And then I suppose the remaining question is, what do I want to make of the remaining Core, Fete, and Shapt? So I think we might as well go get our money's worth with the Moth Orchid. Now I'm trying to remember if I actually used up all the Lenten rows that I have or not, because I don't see any here. So there's a side of me that wants to drop the water, but I think in this case it wouldn't hurt for me to put the effort in. Pluck the petals of the Lenten rose. So that leaves me with 1 fet and 1 shapt. One of those I'm going to want to use with the Cosley book. And I suppose at this point the question would be, well, I'm already bringing back a shaft. I may just use this for money. Because I don't really see that much else I want to do with it. Okay, I think I'm actually feeling pretty good about this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to get Mr. Kill in a position to open up that other area. This is 14. I don't think I have any 14 edges. And that's Horns and Ivers. I should have checked to see if that's actually in play. Yes, it is. Okay, that's good. So again, this is tricky in the sense that we have, like, they're all high level, with the exception of Path and Pilgrim. But yeah, for the most part, I'm feeling okay in terms of where we are with the remaining to-do list. Like, this feels like an achievable batch, but something that also takes a bit of effort for me to be able to work with. I will queue up Mr. Kill's lumber. Additional supplies. I can offer my assistant suitable timber I have laying around. Alright, so with that, that should get us the 13 that we need for Mr. Kill's visit to the crystallized chamber. In fact, I'm going to make a note of that right now. Because none of my old notes are relevant anymore. So, Mr. K2... So Mr. Kill will go to the crystallized chamber. My path is blocked by shining surfaces like curdled light. Dark shapes shift beneath. We can tap away the crystal if we're careful, but we must be careful. In a little under 2 minutes, we'll also open up the opportunity for the flooded level. And then I still have 1 level of Glacierian lightsmithing. So once all of those are done, I think it would be fair to say that we start off. Yeah, so starting off next week in terms of the episodes, we're actually in a decent spot as far as having some freedom. So, you know, I'll probably, in general, if I'm going to be moving towards something, you know, it's nice to have a purpose. So, you know, you may notice there are a few books kind of related to the various topics that I've been covering on these. So we've now sort of got to the big climax of knowing what happened to Collars. There's something kind of interesting inside here, but we'll maybe let that can potentially grow over time. But more importantly, in terms of directions where I'm going, we don't have a salon. We've already taken care of that. I have maybe, oh yeah, sorry, I need to make a note for replace Ascendant Harmony. So yeah, I'm replacing the Ascendant Harmony with, once we get our Bells and Braziers back. But aside from any obvious opportunities that present themselves maybe with the flooded level, I'm thinking probably what we'll start doing is focusing, well, sorry, we've been focusing on it for a while, but we'll be kind of doubling down on things like how the end will begin. Now, I wasn't thinking when I noticed the Ragged Crossroads here, because that, I believe, we've already committed. Yes, so that shouldn't be in this pile. Yep, okay, that's good. What I will do, though, I will reshelve the Queens of the Rivers. So no promises that I will have that finished, but seems like a decent one to work on. But yeah, so again, the aim here is to find the homes for these various skills. Once those are done, I can start thinking. So like, let's say I know I want to put something at level 9, like Edicts Martial. I can say, okay, well, we didn't find any Edicts Martial here. Clearly, Edicts Martial is a very valuable skill for me. So do I have something that'll give me 2 Moon or 2 Edge? And then I can kind of look through the, library here. In fact, I was talking about Ragged Crossroads. That gives me Edge. So perfect example about why I might want to read How the End Will Begin right off the bat. So after that process, I will, so first is to just find my baseline, find all of the things that I have lessons for, get them as far as I can. And once I've done that, then I can start working down these remaining texts here, here, and here. And I have enough flexibility now with the available text, but I want to be a little thoughtful in terms of how I navigate that, for the simple reason that, let's say I go crazy and I use Moon for just about everything. Well, that'll mean I have once I have something where I really need Moon. A perfect example of this would be something like Stone Stories, where it's like Nectar and Scale. So I'm really limited in terms of the various memories that I can get from that, and the lessons are not as plentiful. I want to minimize the number of cases where those come up. Anyways, I'm extending the run unnecessarily. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you on Monday. I hope you all have a nice weekend. Until then, take care.